The cold wind of the Terran frontier whistled through the steel walls of Outpost 7. For years, engineer Ethan Cole had lived alone there, maintaining signal towers and repairing damaged drones. He had seen hundreds of cargo ships come and go, carrying trade goods and machines, but never a visitor for him. His only companion was the quiet hum of the generators and the whisper of the stars. One evening, a message blinked across his console. Cultural Exchange Marriage Program. Your partner is en route. Ethan frowned, thinking it must be an error, but the coordinates matched his station. He had signed up months ago, mostly as a joke. After reading about interspecies partnerships meant to promote peace between humans and the outer colonies, he never thought the system would actually select him. Hours later, a small shuttle descended through the dusty sky. Its hull scorched and dented, it landed roughly near the cum tower. Steam hissing from broken vents, Ethan ran out, coat flapping in the wind, expecting a cheerful diplomat or maybe a scientist instead. The ramp lowered and a slender alien woman stepped out, her silver blue skin bruised, her eyes frightened, her breathing shallow. She looked nothing like the confident brides shown in recruitment posters. For a moment, they just stared at each other under the pale light of twin moons. I'm Ethan Cole, he said carefully, his voice low and calm. The alien woman hesitated, then whispered, Lyra, almost too soft to hear. Her voice carried an accent, musical yet trembling. When Ethan offered his hand, she flinched slightly before accepting. Her fingers cold as glass, inside the outpost. He gave her water and food, trying not to show his worry. She ate in silence, every movement cautious, as if expecting to be struck when he asked if she was injured. She shook her head quickly, eyes darting toward the window. Ethan noticed the faint glow of symbols etched beneath her skin, marks that pulsed like data lines. Those bruises, he said gently. Were they from the landing? Lyra froze, her lips parting, but no answer came. Only the low hum of the power core filled the room. Later that night, Ethan stood outside, staring at her shuttle. It looked damaged by more than just re-entry scorch marks. Bullet holes and melted plating told a story of pursuit. He wondered who had sent her and what she was running from. Inside, Lyra sat near the fire, eyes reflecting the flickering orange glow. She traced her fingers across the table, whispering words in her own language. The translator implant on her collar picked up fragments. Danger. Tracking. Run. Ethan's stomach tightened. At midnight, he woke to the sound of static from the comms tower. The system was detecting unknown transmissions, encrypted signals bouncing across deep space frequencies. Someone was scanning for her ship. He rushed to the control room. Lyra following, her hands trembling. They found me, she whispered, her voice cracking. Ethan looked at her in disbelief. Who found you? What's going on? But before she could reply, alarms blared. Red lights washed the outpost in a glow that felt almost alive. Ethan sprinted to the window and froze. Far above the horizon, lights shimmered in the clouds, not thunder, but engines. 3 dark ships moved silently, shaped like blades cutting through the storm. They're not Terran, he muttered. Lyra backed away, clutching the side of her head as if in pain. Her implant flickered, sending thin sparks across her neck. They are here for me, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I thought I could hide, but they can feel my signal. Ethan grabbed his rifle and sealed the outpost doors. Who are they? He demanded. Lyra looked at him with deep sorrow, her voice barely a breath. My people, she said. The Velther Dominion. Ethan had heard rumors. A cold and ruthless empire that conquered worlds with biomachines and telepathic soldiers. But he had never imagined one of them standing in his home. Terrified and broken. Outside, The sky thundered as energy beams struck the sand. Lyra pressed her hands against her temples, screaming as if her mind was on fire. "They are calling me back," she cried. "They will destroy you if I don't return." Ethan knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "Then we'll make sure they can't find you." He dragged her to the console and began rerouting power to the shields. The screen flickered, showing a Dominion code trying to override their systems. Lyra suddenly placed her palm on the interface. Her eyes glowed silver. An alien symbol streamed across the display. Blocking the enemy signal, the system obeyed her, not through commands, but through thought. Ethan stared in shock, realizing she wasn't just another refugee. She was something else, something built to connect machines and minds. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They made me to read your kind, but I chose to run instead." The storm outside intensified, lightning flashing against the silhouettes of the approaching ships. Ethan powered down the comms array to mask their signal. Lyra leaned weakly against him, her skin flickering with faint light. He looked down at her and said softly, "Whatever you're hiding, we'll face it together." For the first time since her arrival, she looked at him with trust. But in the distance, through the roaring wind, came the low hum of the Dominion fleet, searching, waiting, hunting. Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle and whispered, "They'll have to get through me first." And outside, the stars above the Terran frontier began to burn brighter, as if the heavens themselves were preparing for war. The night after the attack, the outpost lay silent. Buried under dust and smoke, Ethan hadn't slept. His mind racing with questions about the alien woman now sleeping on his cot. Lyra's breathing was soft but uneven, her skin glowing faintly beneath the thin blanket. Every few minutes, her body twitched as if fighting something inside her mind. Ethan sat by the console, studying the encrypted data drive he had taken from her damaged shuttle. It was locked behind layers of alien coding, far beyond human systems. He had seen encryption like this once, on a captured Velther drone recovered from a battlefield. When he tried to open it, the screen flashed symbols faster than the eye could follow. The ship's IA refused to read them, instead warning, "Biolink required." Lyra stirred awake, her eyes opening slowly, silver light glimmering inside her pupils. "Where did you get that?" she asked quietly. Ethan turned the drive in his hand. "It was hidden in your ship's hull." For a moment she looked terrified, then resigned. "You weren't supposed to find it," she whispered. "But maybe it's time you know." She placed her hand on the console, and the screen came alive. Lines of alien code twisted and reformed into images. A map of the stars. Thousands of red markers blinked across human territory. Ethan's heart sank. "Those are Terran colonies." Lyra nodded slowly. "Targets." She explained everything, her voice trembling with guilt. "I was part of the Velther Dominion's neural program," she said. "They designed me to link with human systems, to learn your language, your signals, your defense patterns." Her tone broke as she continued. "They called me an interpreter, but I was a weapon." Ethan stared in disbelief. "A weapon?" Lyra nodded. "They were going to use me to plant a virus, one that could turn your defense network against itself." She clenched her hands together, the marks under her skin pulsing like veins of light. "I escaped when I found out," she whispered, "but the Dominion marked me. They can trace my signal anywhere." Ethan looked out the window, where the sky was still dark and quiet. "So they'll keep coming," he said. "Until they have you again." Lyra nodded sadly. "Yes, and when they find me, they'll destroy everything near me." Ethan stood in silence, feeling the weight of her words. He had fixed machines, fought storms, even survived a pirate raid, but this was different. This wasn't a simple war over resources or trade. This was a war over trust, over the fragile bond between species trying to live in peace. Lyra stepped closer, her voice low. "Ethan, you need to report me to the Terran Council. They'll know what to do." He looked at her sharply. "They'll dissect you before listening." She flinched, but didn't argue. "I'd rather die than let them find that virus," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "No, you didn't come all this way to die. You came to warn us." She looked up at him, confused. "Warn you?" He pointed at the holographic map. This is proof. If we send it through secure channels, maybe someone will listen." Lyra hesitated. "They'll trace the signal." Ethan gave a small grin. "Then we'll make sure they trace it to the wrong place. Together." They began working, rerouting data lines, masking transmissions, building false coordinates. Lyra guided him through the alien code, her hands steady, her voice calm. For a brief moment, it almost felt peaceful. Two different beings working side by side in quiet understanding. Ethan couldn't help but notice how her eyes softened when she focused, how her breathing slowed when she worked. He thought of how lonely his outpost had been before she arrived. Now, that loneliness had been replaced with danger, and something else, something he couldn't name yet. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. The comms array picked up a signal. Faint but growing stronger. Lyra froze, eyes wide. No. They found the pulse. Ethan rushed to the console. "How?" She placed her hand against her temple, wincing in pain. "They're using my old frequency. They're tracking me through my implant." The screen flashed a warning. "Incoming Dominion probe detected." Ethan grabbed his gear and ran to the outer hatch, the desert wind hitting his face like knives. He could see it in the distance, a dark sphere descending slowly, scanning beams sweeping across the sand. He turned back toward Lyra, shouting, "Can you shut it down?" She shook her head. "It's autonomous. It's looking for me." Without hesitation, Ethan aimed his pulse rifle and fired. The energy beam struck the sphere, but it barely wavered. Its scanners locking onto the outpost. "Get inside." Ethan yelled, pulling Lyra back as explosions tore across the ridge. Inside, alarms blared, dust raining from the ceiling. Lyra collapsed to her knees, clutching her head as the implant flickered wildly. "I can stop it," she gasped, "but I need a direct link." Ethan didn't understand what she meant until she grabbed his wrist and pressed his hand to the console. Their minds connected for a brief instant, his vision flooded with light and alien voices. He saw memories of her training, the laboratories, the pain, the escape, and deep within, he felt her fear, her loneliness, her wish to just be free. The console exploded in sparks as the connection broke. Outside, the Dominion probe crashed into the dunes. Smoke billowing into the night, Lyra fell unconscious, her skin dimming. The marks fading like dying embers, Ethan caught her in his arms, his voice shaking, "You're safe now, I promise." But in the distance, among the shattered stars, the Dominion fleet began to stir. The war she had fled was now coming for them both. The sun rose over the Terran frontier, painting the dunes in gold and fire. Ethan stood outside the damaged outpost, smoke curling from the shattered antenna. Lyra lay inside, recovering slowly, her breathing soft and uneven. The Dominion probe was gone, but its message had already traveled. Somewhere out there, they knew she was alive. He contacted the Terran Council, sending a coded distress signal. Within hours, a military transport landed nearby, soldiers in black armor stepping out. At first, Ethan felt relief. Finally, help had come, but as he watched their movements, his hope turned to unease. They didn't look like rescuers. They looked like hunters. The lead officer removed his helmet, General Carver, a man Ethan had only seen in broadcasts. His reputation was legendary. But his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Engineer Cole," he said smoothly. You've done humanity a great service. He looked around the wreckage. Then added, Now, where is the alien? Ethan hesitated. Her name is Lyra. She's injured. She needs help. Carver's expression hardened. She's a threat, not a guest, before Ethan could reply. 2 soldiers pushed past him and entered the outpost. Lyra tried to stand, but they pinned her to the wall. Their weapons humming, Ethan rushed in, shouting, Stop! She's not the enemy. Carver stepped inside, his boots clicking against the metal floor. She carries Dominion technology in her body, he said coldly. That makes her a weapon, whether she wants it or not. Ethan clenched his fists. She came here to warn us. Carver smiled faintly. Or maybe to deliver a virus right into our systems. Lyra's voice cracked. Please, I didn't want this. Carver looked at her with disgust. You're going to tell us everything you know, one way or another. He motioned to his men. And they injected her with a sedative. Her eyes rolled back as she collapsed. Whispering Ethan's name, Ethan tried to stop them. But a soldier struck him in the stomach. Sending him to the floor, when he woke, he was in the corner of the hangar, bound by magnetic cuffs through the glass window. He saw Carver and his team working on the console. Lyra was strapped to a table, her skin glowing faintly under bright lights. Machines were connected to her implant, downloading something, data streams. Glowing red and black, Ethan shouted. You can't just rip it from her. You'll kill her. Carver didn't look up. If that's what it takes to stop a war, so be it. Ethan's heart pounded in rage. He remembered the files they had decoded together, the proof of the Dominion's virus, the warning she had risked everything to deliver. And now the same virus was being opened right here by Terran Command. Minutes turned to hours, and an alarm started to blare. One of the officers shouted, Sir, the data's unstable. Lyra screamed in agony as the implant flared. Energy burst from the console, burning through circuits. The lights flickered as the outpost systems went dark. Ethan tore at his restraints until his wrists bled. The magnetic cuffs sparked and released after the overload. He stumbled forward, rushing to Lyra's side. Carver raised his gun. Step back, Cole. She's compromised. But before he could fire, Lyra's body pulsed with light. The holographic image of a Dominion admiral appeared above her, cold eyes. Armor like obsidian, the admiral's voice echoed. To the humans who think they control their fate, you've opened the gate yourselves. The transmission spread across every Terran network in range. Ethan stared in horror. You triggered it. The virus. Carver's face went pale. That's impossible, Lyra gasped weakly. He used the code. My code. The admiral smirked through the hologram. Now your ships, your weapons, your skies, all belong to the Dominion. Carver tried to cut the transmission, but it was too late. Every Terran console around them flickered red, the Dominion emblem spreading like fire. Lyra's body trembled, her implant burning with energy she couldn't control. Ethan grabbed her hand, shouting over the chaos, Fight it, Lyra. You can stop this. Tears streamed down her face. I can't. The outpost shook as explosions rippled in the distance. Dominion ships entering orbit. Carver stumbled toward the door, barking orders. Evacuate now. Ethan looked down at Lyra, still holding her. She whispered faintly, You have to destroy it. Before it spreads further, Ethan's voice broke. You'll die, she smiled weakly. If it saves your world, then it's worth it. Before he could answer, the roof collapsed, fire and dust raining down. Ethan shielded her with his body as debris crashed around them. When the smoke cleared, Carver was gone, and the outpost was nothing but ruins. Ethan looked at the burning horizon, then at the woman in his arms. He made a silent vow. If the Dominion wanted her, they'd have to go through all of humanity to get her. The night sky above the frontier burned red, the stars hidden behind waves of energy. Ethan carried Lyra through the ruins of the outpost, her skin still glowing faintly from the overload. Each breath she took seemed heavier than the last, but her eyes refused to close. He laid her gently beside the broken console, whispering, "Stay with me." The cum screen flickered, lines of Dominion code still crawling like living fire across the circuits. Lyra forced herself upright, her hand trembling as she touched the interface. "They're sending a command beacon," she said weakly. "A signal that will summon the fleet." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then we'll stop it before it reaches them." She shook her head slowly. "You can't stop it with Terran code." Her voice broke. "It's bound to my neural frequency. Only I can jam it." Ethan stared at her, realizing what she meant. "If you try, you'll burn out the implant." Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what it takes to end this." He grabbed her shoulders, his voice shaking. "No, you're not dying for their mistake." Lyra looked up at him, her silver eyes soft and sad. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They built me to connect minds, and now I can use that gift against them." She pressed her palm against his chest. "But I need your signal to ground mine. Otherwise it will consume me." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Whatever you need." She placed both hands on the console. Linking her biosignature to his human frequency, the system roared to life, holographic energy swirling around them. Suddenly, the face of the Dominion admiral appeared once again, larger than before, projected across the entire sky. The admiral's voice boomed. "So the defect still lives. How fitting that she hides behind the very species she was made to destroy." Lyra's voice trembled. "No more control, no more war." The admiral laughed coldly. "You think the galaxy will follow a slave and her human pet?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. "Maybe not, but they'll see what you really are." He rerouted the feed to every Terran frequency, broadcasting the transmission galaxy-wide. Billions watched as the admiral sneered, revealing the Dominion's plan for conquest. Lyra's voice cut through the static, clear and powerful. "I was created to be their weapon," she said, "but I choose peace. I choose freedom." The Dominion ships in orbit began to appear on sensors. Thousands of them, each one carrying enough firepower to level continents. Ethan's console warmed. Multiple warp signatures detected. Lyra's body shook, her voice weak but determined. "I can hold them off for a moment. Long enough to send the truth." Her neural implant surged, light bursting from her skin like a storm of stars. Through her mind flowed every image she had seen. The torture chambers, the labs, the wars. Ethan caught glimpses too, his body trembling as he felt her memories. And in that connection, he understood her pain, her courage, her impossible hope. The admiral's face distorted, fury filling his expression. "Enough!" he shouted. "End the transmission. Destroy that station." But Lyra smiled, tears of silver falling down her cheeks. "You can't silence freedom," she whispered, and unleashed the signal. The Dominion's encrypted channels exploded with light. Every ship's systems flooded with her voice. Her message spread far beyond the battlefield, reaching colonies, rebels, even Dominion citizens. They saw the truth. The empire they feared was built on lies and pain. For the first time in generations, the Dominion wavered. Ethan watched as Lyra fell to her knees, her glow fading. The console flickered and died, leaving only silence and the distant thunder of ships entering orbit. He knelt beside her, gripping her hand tightly. "They're here," he said quietly, looking up at the crimson sky. Lyra looked at him with faint light still in her eyes. "Then let them come," she whispered, "because now the whole galaxy is watching." Outside, massive Dominion warships descended through the clouds, their shadows swallowing the desert below. Terran fleets began to rise from the horizon, engines burning blue like the dawn of a new day. And as the two forces faced each other across the empty sky, the world held its breath, the silence before the greatest war in human history. Ethan looked at Lyra and said softly, "You didn't just warn us. You united us." Lyra smiled weakly. "Then maybe there's hope after all." The first blasts lit up the heavens, and the signal of war echoed across every world that could hear it. The war began with light brighter than dawn. Above the Terran frontier, thousands of ships filled the sky. The Dominion fleet burned red and black, their weapons like falling suns. The Terran armada answered with fire, silver dreadnoughts and defense carriers roaring through the atmosphere. And in the middle of it all, a small transport rose from the smoke. Carrying Ethan and Lyra, inside the cockpit, alarms screamed. The hull shaking with every blast, Lyra sat weakly beside him, her hands trembling, her glow fading. Ethan gripped the controls, his voice tight. "Hold on. We're almost there." Their target wasn't a planet, not a ship, but the Dominion flagship itself, the one carrying the admiral who had started it all. The massive vessel loomed ahead, a fortress in the stars. Dozens of escort cruisers surrounded it. But Ethan didn't slow down. "Ethan," Lyra whispered, "you can still turn back." He glanced at her, eyes fierce. "Not without finishing what you started," as they approached. Lyra connected her mind to the Dominion network one last time. "I can shut them down," she said softly. "If I overload my implant, it'll send a pulse through their systems." Ethan realized what that meant, his heart pounding. "No, there has to be another way." Lyra smiled faintly. "You gave me freedom. Now let me give you peace." The Dominion fleet opened fire, beams slicing through space like blades. Ethan maneuvered the small craft through the chaos, diving between explosions. Human and alien ships clashed all around, blue flames against crimson fire. Everywhere he looked, the sky was alive with war. They crashed through the outer hull of the flagship, metal screaming as they tore into its corridors. Ethan pulled Lyra from the wreckage, her body weak but her eyes steady. "This way," she whispered. Leading him toward the command core, the admiral's voice echoed through the ship, cold and merciless. "You think love can stop an empire. Pathetic human." Ethan raised his rifle. "Maybe not, but it can end one." They reached the control nexus, a vast chamber of glass and energy. Lyra stepped into the center, her feet glowing as her implant linked with the Dominion network. Streams of data flowed around her like rivers of light. "Once I start, there's no going back," she said quietly. Ethan stepped closer, his voice soft. "And I'm not leaving you." Lyra smiled through her tears. "You already gave me what I was never meant to have. A choice." She reached out and touched his face. "And I choose you?" She closed her eyes and let the energy surge. Light burst from her body, spreading across every Dominion ship in orbit. The pulse raced through the fleet, cutting through control systems, disabling engines and weapons. Ethan watched in awe as red lights dimmed, one by one, until silence fell across the stars. The admiral screamed as his systems failed, his ship falling into the planet's gravity. Lyra's body flickered, her light fading into soft silver embers. Ethan caught her as she collapsed, holding her close. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved them." Her voice was barely a breath. "Then it was worth it." Outside, the Dominion fleet burned out of the sky. The war ended not with a victory shout, but with quiet, the kind that only follows sacrifice. Ethan stood among the ruins, watching the sunrise through the smoke. He held a small crystal, Lyra's implant, now dim and cold, years later. The Terran and freed Velther colonies built a monument where the final battle had been fought. A single statue stood in the center, a human and an alien hand reaching toward each other. Beneath it, carved in both languages, were the words Lyra had spoken. Peace is not given. It is chosen. And every dawn, as light touched the statue, a faint silver glow shimmered along the hands. Some said it was just reflection. Others said it was her. Still watching, still guarding. Ethan never left the frontier, but sometimes at night, he swore he could hear her voice in the wind, soft and warm, whispering, "You are not alone." The stars burned brighter than ever, and humanity remembered the day love ended a war and began something greater.